I'm super happy with how that V-neck turned out.
Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thanks so much for joining me today. I thrifted this awesome t-shirt. I absolutely love the graphic on it, but it's got that high neck, which I really dislike a lot. And so I've had quite a few requests to show how to change a t-shirt into a V-neck. So that's what I'm gonna do. Just wanna mark how low I want that V to go. Now you see that's gonna cut right through this graphic, and I'm totally okay with that. I think that's kind of a cool look. It's sort of irreverent and fun. So my V is gonna go right into the graphic. Luckily, this t-shirt's longer than I need it to be. I'm gonna be able to cut off a bit off the bottom, give myself a new hem, and use that bit that I cut off as the neckband. So let's get right into it.
It's going to be all black on black today, so I want to make sure that you can see this cover stitch. So it's got the double line of stitching, and I want to cut about 1/4 inch above that second line. So that puts me exactly 1 inch from the bottom. Now I can't just cut that because the bottom layer here might not be exactly in line, so I'll throw a few pins in there. This neckband, I'm just going to cut off, and I'll keep it for another project. So I'm going to cut it off in a way that I'm not destroying the neckband, because they are pretty handy, especially when you upcycle a lot of t-shirts. Having a black neckband around, that's pretty useful. So I'm cutting the t-shirt only. Now I want to just fold the t-shirt in half so that I can cut that V-neck symmetrically. So I'm bringing the two shoulder seams right together. I can put a pin there. Okay, so now I'm going to connect that dot to wherever it hits here. Okay, so now you might want to try it on again at this point, because sometimes it is more flattering if you curve this line. I'm just going to try it on and decide. Sometimes t-shirts don't have side seams, right? Like sometimes they're knit into a tube, and so sometimes they just don't have a side seam. In that case, that's easier. This one has 2 side seams though. Normally I probably would put that side seam at the center back, but because my graphic, the color is coming onto this part of the hem, I can't avoid it entirely, but I'm going to avoid as much as I can. It's going to be coming around like that. That's going to be nice, right? And you see what I mean about like cutting into the graphic actually just makes it more interesting. It doesn't bother me at all. So now, anytime you're doing any kind of neckband, you want that band to have to stretch. If it doesn't stretch, it's going to stand up tall. So I'm going to just start by pinning that shoulder seam to the seam of the neckband. And then I'm going to just stretch a little bit as I go. So I'm not stretching the t-shirt at all. I'm stretching only the band. Now I'm going to be using my serger. Yes, you can totally do this on your regular sewing machine. Just sew first and then zigzag. If you have a serger though, you'll love it for this. Stretching the band, not the t-shirt. I'm not going to go right into the V yet. I'm going to go, let's say, an inch, a few centimeters away from the V. Let's go over to the serger. Here I am down at the V of the t-shirt, and I'm just going to hop on about 1.5 inches or so above that V. I'm going to be paying attention to the 2 little bumps on the presser foot here. They line up with the needles, and so if I can get this second, like the left hand bump, to be lined up with the bottom of the serging, it's going to look really sharp. It's going to be perfectly parallel, and it's going to look like it's cover stitched. So I'm stretching out as I go and making sure my edges are always together. I love using my serger for this, but if you don't have a serger, it's no problem. You can sew right beside the cover seam here and then zigzag your edge. Okay, I'm coming down here now. I want to end about 1.5 inches or so away from the V at the bottom here. Good, and then I'll just chain off. You can see hopefully that line of stitching there that my seam is just totally parallel to. I'm just going to mark it with wax to make those stitches show up better. So hopefully you can see what I mean now. The sewing that was on that hem ends up looking like a functional part of the V-neck. I'm going to stick a piece of paper in the V-neck here, just hopefully so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. This black on black is killing me here, but hopefully I've got enough light on here that you can see. Okay, so now I've got the 2 tails left of what we're using for the neckband, and you can see that that's going to look good. And there are 2 ways that you can do this. I'll show you both, but I'll end up sewing one. So I'm tucking them both in, one going on top of the other one. And I'm kind of arranging it from the outside. Right, there's a lot of extra to this band, but I don't want to cut it off yet. So with it just overlapping like that, that looks actually pretty darn good. There's no reason why I wouldn't just go with that, but I want to show the other way as well in case you prefer. So I would just pin it from the outside just like this. So I know I'm happy with it. I'd go inside and repin from the inside now. So this is all just super fiddly. It's not difficult, it's just super fiddly. I have to just snip down the V a little smidge there, just the width of my seam allowance. Then I'd be able to get in here and pin from the inside. I'd probably want to sew it with that body of the garment up so I can see that snip, right? I want to be able to sew close to that. So they are overlapping like that. Pin from the inside and then check again from the outside to make sure you like the way it's arranged and that all the edges are getting caught in there. So I have to make sure my edges stay together. Don't let the body slip away from the band. And I'd be sewing right along there to the cutout here. The cutout's right there. I'd sew to the cutout and pivot and continue. And then just before you sew, check it from the outside and make sure you're happy. You can cut off the extra at any time now or later. The later is probably safer. Connecting to your serged edge, sew to the bottom of the snip, and then pivot and come back up. Okay, so that's method number 1. Method number 2, I did on this t-shirt a long time ago. So I've got the seam coming in the middle, and then I did a double needle stitch here. I'm not going to do double needle today, but I'm going to try again that seam. This is nice on the inside too. It doubles back and folds into the edge. So let's try it. Okay, for the second method now I've got the t-shirt inside out and folded in half. This is the center front fold here. So the little extra bits are just sticking out here. And I want to just make sure that everything is lined up nice and even. So I'm checking to make sure those shoulder seams are even. Everything is nice. Okay, there's my little snip right at the center front. With the ruler now, lining up along that front fold, I'm just going to draw a line right there. So that's where I want to sew. I'll sew a line right there. Okay, so it's just the 2 bands right side together, right on my line. So with that little line sewn, now I'm just checking it from the outside. I still haven't trimmed off this. I'll just spread that out on the back so that it's laying nice and flat. Okay, that's going to be good, I think. Now I'm going to try to catch it all from the inside. So if I look at it this way, my little cutout, can you see the little, that's the snip, right? That's the snip. It's going to open out and it's going to center around that seam of the V. Can you see that? I really hope you can. So there's the snip is now like almost flattened right out. So I'm just completing the bottom of the V now, connecting to the serging here, coming up to where my little snip is, and then pivoting and coming back down and connecting to the serging on this side. And these little extras are just going to get sewn in, and then I'll trim them off. If they're bothering you, you can trim them off now. I just kind of want to hedge my bets and just have it in case. So it's just a straight line here down to the snip. Okay, now that I'm at the snip, I'm pivoting. So I'm rearranging this side. My needle is down, holding that V. I'm coming around this way now. So you just rearrange at the bottom of the snip and come back up the other side. And again, you might want to do this with a long stitch. Just baste it first and then check. So the inside looks good. It's sort of, the pieces are folded back and they're caught in the seam. It takes a little playing around with. I'm going to do two more things to this neck. One is just cut off the extra of the band. If you find that all too fiddly, you could sew those extra pieces down before you sew it into the V. That's probably helpful. So now that I've checked it from the outside and I'm happy-ish, now I'm going to serge the inside edge just around that V. Being very careful to make sure there's nothing folded underneath that I'm going to accidentally cut off. And yes, of course, you could just zigzag these edges. And then as soon as my needles have cleared that edge, I'll lift up and come back up the other side. The last thing I'm going to do is a little edge stitch. I'm pushing the seam allowance down toward the body, and I'm just going to sew close to the edge to hold that seam allowance down and to complete the look of that like cover stitch. So this will be like the second arm of the cover stitching. Even though it's not actually cover stitching, it's going to look like it. If I ride this side of the presser foot along this line of stitching from the original hem, that should be nice and parallel. Nice clean pivot at the point. Super happy with how that V-neck turned out. And just a quick press. That's really gorgeous. I've serged around the bottom, and now I'm just going to turn up 2 centimeters, 2 to 3. If it's less than 2, it'll roll after you wash it once. 3 centimeters is good, but I don't want the shirt to get too short. What I'm going to do is a finger width. You could use a double needle to hem this. I think I'm just going to stick with my universal needle and just have it slightly stretched out as I sew it, so I don't have to worry about the thread breaking later. There's also like the little lightning stitch you can use if you're worried about your thread breaking. I'm going to try out that lightning stitch. So on my machine it looks like that. I've increased the length and the width of the lightning stitch just a little bit. So I'm at 1.5 millimeters wide and 4 millimeters long, mainly because I just find it really slow and too punctury. It punctures the fabric too much. So I've been trying the whole time to get as much light on this as I possibly can so that you can see the black on black. I know it's tricky. I hope that you can see that it worked. I'm super happy with this shirt. In fact, I'm going to keep it on for the day now. It's just so much more comfortable around the neck. I can breathe. I don't feel like I'm being choked. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it is super fiddly. So do what I was suggesting. Baste it first with that long stitch length, no back tacks. Check it from the outside first before you commit to some serious sewing, right? Get it looking good with that basting stitch first. If it's all good, then go over it with your regular stitch length. It might take a couple tries, but you'll get it, and it's really worth doing because that really looks good, I gotta say, right? I hope you had fun with that. I hope you learned something, and thank you so much for supporting my channel and subscribing. Leave a comment, let me know how you like this video. It means a lot to me. Until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.